Hey everyone, welcome back to another video on my channel. So I just wanted to briefly address the question, is the ADHD real? So yeah, ADHD is real. That is my answer. If you don't want to hear anymore, then bye. Otherwise, hang about to hear what I have to say about it. So, I want to address briefly that in different countries, I'm sure ADHD is dealt with quite differently, but in the UK and the UK, the US, more the Western countries, I'm gonna say, ADHD is, and it could be the same everywhere, is diagnosed using the DSM-5. So there's a whole bunch of symptoms and traits that many people with ADHD say they have, but they don't get put into the DSM-5 because the DSM-5 is there just to diagnose you, and I think that's an important clarification, understanding to have, because otherwise we might think, wow, it's dismissing all these other things we go through, and I don't think that's the intentions of the DSM-5 and the people who create the DSM-5, nor do I think the people who create the DSM-5 are just there to make money off selling psychiatric and other kinds of neurological drugs. I don't believe that there's a room of evil people from years ago who were thinking, how are we going to make money out of people and their mental health? I don't think that is what happened at all, but at least the treatments that people receive nowadays are a lot more ethical than they were in the past. And obviously ADHD is not actually a mental health disorder, it's a neurological disorder, as what I believe it to be. So I've heard other people like Russell Brand and people who was actually diagnosed with ADHD when he was younger completely dismiss the idea that ADHD being real and being like, well, I don't buy it and all this. I'm like, okay, it's literally in the DSM-5. You don't believe in the DSM-5 and what all these people have researched and studied and all okay, that's fine, but that is not my opinion. So I guess there's different ways to look at it, and I think that's probably where the differences lie in opinions. So I would say that ADHD is real because But it's just a bunch of traits or symptoms, however you want to describe it, put together, and then they describe some difficulties that all these people with those same traits have. And so I find myself believing in ADHD because I've had the experience of having ADHD. And I know how much more difficult that can be, having ADHD, to everybody else around me, or seemingly so, because I don't know what it is to be other people and to experience life as they do. And when I was younger, I just thought that I was the only person with problems, and obviously that just isn't the case. I just hid them from everybody, but because I have the experiences that these things are in the DSM-5, which is all man-made things, but everything has a name because we give it a name anyway, and we've just taken a bunch of traits that seem to be caused by something to do with dopamine or neuropathy, almost deficiencies, or just different ways that they are in our brains compared to neurotypical people. Because I have this experience, then I believe that ADHD is real, and I think whether you want to take medication or not is entirely a personal decision, but the evidence suggests that it is worth at least trying. My experience tells me to tell you that it's worth trying, and if you don't like it, you can just stop taking it, or reduce your dose down and do what your doctor tells you to do. I think doctors have a biased opinion, of course, and I would almost almost say that it's not even just opinions that they have. I would say it's more objective than that. It's based on their own studies, their own experience with people, treating people and diagnosing people and talking to people who have ADHD themselves. And so actually, I speak to my psychiatrist and I expect that he's not going to have a clue, or he's going to tell me what to do when I want to be the one who makes the decisions in my life, and then he doesn't do that, and it surprises me, and I'm like, you really are here to help me deal with these bunch of things in my life caused by issues with my own dopamine levels and norepinephrine, and there's way more into it than that I just don't know about. But yeah, I just thought I would address, is ADHD real? And yeah, I just think that there's a whole bunch of people out there who don't have ADHD. So people who have ADHD, and they're probably a bit in denial about it, maybe. But more likely, it is getting diagnosed more and more so, and there's probably a bunch of reasons for that. One being that mental health is something that the stigma is being reduced on over time. The internet allows people to kind of find out for themselves what might be wrong with them, and then when they have an idea they can go to a psychiatrist. There's a whole bunch of reasons why I believe that people are getting diagnosed more, and it doesn't mean, I don't know, and it comes to a point where it's like, where's the line of like, you don't have ADHD or you do. I think there's a borderline point probably, and then obviously there's all kinds of things that can cause the different symptoms or traits of ADHD. I'm going to say traits. There's a whole bunch of things that can cause them, like if you're not sleeping very well and you're burned out, you're going to have more difficulty concentrating, just for one. But with the dopamine issue, I can't explain it. It's something you can't experience until you have experienced it. Like having little dopamine and then having a lot and feeling hyper alert, hyper focused, and then the opposite to that. It's not an inability to concentrate. I've always said this. It is an inability to regulate your concentration in the way that a lot of other people can. And obviously there's more to it than that. It's not just about concentration. But if you don't think that's a disorder, then I guess you don't think that's a disorder. And it's only a disorder because of how everybody else is, and how other people see us. But actually having a diagnosis can do wonderful things, trust me, because this has been my experience, and this has been so many people's experiences that I've read about. It can do immense things for your mental, emotional well-being. And yeah, so I believe ADHD exists. ADHD does exist according to the DSM-5. Whether you believe it or not, it's still in existence in most people's realities. I would say it's definitely very, very existent in my reality. And you know what? I think it should be embraced more. I think that the suffering around ADHD comes from not being able to keep up with things, dealing with more of the consequences of never really feeling good enough because you constantly are making mistakes, for example, and you're never on top of anything in your life, and it comes from the things that come from having the ADHD, if that makes sense, is my understanding thus far. So let me know what you guys think. I'm totally not agreeing with Russell Brand. Like, I tried to read one of his books once until he said ADHD isn't real, he doesn't buy it, and I'm like, but it is a real disorder. It's not just because people want to make money out of you, and sure, like, maybe in some places, maybe it is in some regard, but if there wasn't a market, if people weren't suffering, and if there wasn't a market for it, it wouldn't, like, the drugs, would they exist? No, they wouldn't. So maybe the market and the suffering has to both be happening for it to happen, for us to be able to get the medication. And if the pharmaceutical company are making money out of me from me getting medication, then so be it. Yeah, I don't know, I go from one extreme to the other, and then see where I fit in between is generally what happens sometimes. I believe in medication for ADHD, but I also believe that we need to find a balance in life, to manage the things that we really hate about it, that really make us struggle, and also embrace the good things, the things that we like about it, because I always think ADHD makes us who we are as people, and so we shouldn't just completely shun that part of ourselves away, and wish it never existed, however hard it can be sometimes. So I hope you're all doing well, and I'll see you again soon.